Welcome to the Dr. Nikki Starr Show, a podcast to support you in your spiritual awakening and personal development. As a spiritual teacher, healer, and intuitive coach, my intention is to empower you to live your ultimate potential and your ultimate life. As a former medical doctor and mystic, my role is to bridge the gap between science and spirituality to support you in understanding more of your multidimensional aspects. I share on a diverse range of topics, and it's all to support your greatest becoming. My mission is to continue reaching millions of people for the healing and awakening of humankind for the creation of the new earth. Thank you for being here.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Today we have with us Dr. Chris, who is a life and relationship coach. And today we're going to be talking about the sacred container of relationship. And I'm really excited to have this conversation so that we can have the masculine and the feminine perspective on this. And so, Chris, welcome. Thank you for being here. If you want to share a little bit more about who you are and what you do before we dive into the topic.
Sure. Yeah. I'm a life coach for probably 2 years right now. I've worked with large coaches in the US and Europe. And I went on my own, started a page about a year ago. My Instagram is relatively new. I pull from almost 3.5 decades of clinical experience and practice, over 18 years, treating just in a family practice, a 250,000 patients, a 14-year marriage, raising children, a divorce. I kind of dated around the world after that, and then moving into what has always been my passion, which is self-help, personal relationship coaching. I've always had a passion for it. So now this is my new purpose-driven mandate in life, and I'm going for it full force.
Beautiful. Yeah. Experience can really be the best thing to make us an expert, to be honest. And I wanted to talk about the sacred container of relationship with you specifically because I saw some of your reels and I was like, yes, more men need to hear what he's saying. And so I guess I'll lead in this moment of, let's say to start that sacred container, I truly believe that it's the man's job to decide and say like, yes, I claim this woman and show up in a way that's consistent. That's also communicating. Like, I want us to be exclusive. I want us to be in a relationship. I feel that us women choose initially, like if you get to keep dating us, that means we're still interested. Yeah. But ultimately, that conversation for the deepening and for the monogamy, I feel should come from the man because it is more of a leadership type of role. And also, we have known in history where women give men these ultimatums or like make them commit before they're ready. And then that sets up not so much a sacred container and possibly a recipe for disaster that comes from obligation instead of true heart's desire. So I'm curious your thoughts on who is the one to say sacred relationship.
I would agree with you 100%. I mean, the reality is men are a little slow, right? If you're going to classify of anxious and avoidant attachment styles, women tend to be more anxious and men tend to be a little more avoidant. So men, certainly part of leadership that a lot of men forget about is emotional leadership, which means you take the initiative. Like there's no, for example, right person that has to say, I love you first. It's not him or her, but I think a positive attribute with a confident man who's a leader is if he feels it, he's going to wait, number one, the appropriate amount of time. And that is not 2 weeks, 3 to 4 months when he actually is looking for a connection, not just the chemistry. And then he's going to lead with the feelings, which shows a sense of emotional vulnerability. And I love what you said as far as the man's job to hold the sacred or create the sacred container. It's really two people's responsibility, but someone's got to start the process. And I'm sure you've heard this. The one thing that so many men ask for in a woman and a complaint when they're dating is I just want a feminine woman. I just want a feminine. Where are all the feminine women? But the reality is, women, when they're paying their bills and being independent, cannot be fully feminine. They have to be in their masculine because you got stuff to do. A man's job is to create a place where a woman can exist or be so that she can actually present in her feminine. It's on him whether the woman is feminine or not. And this is a huge concept that so many women and men miss. If he creates a space of consistency, stability, and predictability, guess what? She's going to show up more kind, more gentle, more feminine, because she doesn't have to worry about resource gathering, creating stability in her environment. It's done already. Whether she's working and contributing financially, that's not the point. The point is she doesn't have the necessity to embrace her masculine, because the guy's got that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I know for me, in my next relationship, that's a must. If the man is not, and I make plenty of money for myself. Like, I live on the water. I've lived in Malibu, Porsche-driven Porsche Cayennes and luxury cars that I got all for myself based on my mission and purpose and what I do in the world. Yeah. And that being said, I want that, especially because who I choose to be with next, I imagine we're going to have children together and do that whole thing. And it is from a biology perspective too, because I've had friends who have been literally horizontal and they can't work. Like, women who had successful businesses that literally couldn't look at a screen. It made them so sick that they were going to vomit. Mm-hmm. And so all of that went away. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I also love my work so much. I can't imagine I'm going to stop working. But it's like you said, it's coming from that overflow and not that need. And two other qualities. The moment you said a man is consistent, a man is predictable, and all of that for that stability. The words that came to my awareness were, I can relax and soften. And I know that soft is a texture that men love. Men want their women to be soft and receptive. It makes sense for the polarity because of penetration. So the softer a woman is, it creates more of that attraction energy from a chemistry perspective as well. And so it actually is a physical turn on when men step more into the provider role as well, because we can then soften on a nervous system level, but also a physical body level, because the mind can keep the body and tense the muscles so much. And so I think that's a really important to point out, because I have seen a lot of conversations on the internet where men feel like that means women are materialistic or they're after money or all these kinds of things, when it's like, especially women who are like doing well for themselves, it's not about that. It's just about knowing that we each bring different roles. Like, I believe that women bring the spiritual leadership usually, especially we know most women are into spirituality more than men, and we're seeing more and more men do self-development work. And so I think in that sense, in terms of bringing to the sacred container, like you talked about, more of those resources is the masculine role, and it's more of like the spirituality, and creating the home is the feminine role, more of that nourishing energy to the physical space, but then also to the relationship.
Absolutely. Just from an evolutionary biology perspective, a man is always going to want to provide biologically a safe environment for a woman, because the ultimate evolutionary goal is, if a woman is in her feminine, she's gentle, she's kind, she is not overregulated as far as her nervous system, she's not stressed out, she has the capacity to show up and raise children that are healthier to live in an environment in the future. She's not going to be the overbearing, stressed out, controlling mother. She's going to be able to show up for her children the way that she's designed to. And that's the man's job, to provide that safe container so the woman can, this is, assuming you want children, but it's still the same idea. That's the biological reason behind it.
Absolutely. And children are the extension of the mother's nervous system. So it's like the mother's role, especially in the first few years of life, are to take care of the children, but then it's the husband that takes care of the woman. And so indirectly, he's caring for the children through the mother. And of course, he's there caring for the children too, but his real primary role is to care for the mother. And then she cares for the children, right? Through breastfeeding, through all the other things that only her body could do. Yeah. And so that's why biologically it's really meant to be that way.
And I like what
And
you said earlier about the men will oftentimes think that women just want, this is a common thing nowadays. Women are just, they're after my money, they're after my things. But the reality is, if you're leading with that, what do you expect? Right?
and also, aren't you happy to share? Like, isn't that the whole point you're doing it anyway?
This is the thing. So it's like I always joke, I'm like, these are bonuses. The lifestyle that man provides is the bonus. But if that's all you have to offer because you don't have the safe container, you don't have the capacity to show up with emotional attunement, with emotional honesty, with commitment. If you fundamentally as a man don't have that capacity to go deep and actually be vulnerable with your woman, then you're going to forefront and be very performative. And of course, the woman's going to say, well, that's all you have to offer. I'll take that. So then men get this idea that, oh, women only want that. It's like, well, yeah, but that's all you're offering. So what do you expect? You know what I mean?
Also, I will say, I know that when a man actually commits to a woman, especially a very aligned, spiritual, powerful woman, his resources grow because
Sure.
women, we have the portal of creation, our uterus, we create babies. We're creator beings more so than you. Of course, we both are. But because of our uterus, like our manifestation powers are crazy, like next level crazy. I mean, like in a good way, crazy. And so men don't realize that. Like, I remember in the past, I had a relationship where the day a guy was like, okay, let's be in a relationship, and then he had like a 30K day. And it was like his biggest day he ever had yet.
Well,
And
for
I
sure.
was like, see?
Well,
Because
this speaks to,
like, oh, it's going to take away from my mission and purpose. I'm
yeah,
kind of like, actually, it may amplify it.
absolutely it will. This speaks to the important thing. Joe Dispenza speaks about this heart coherence. So if you have the capacity to open your heart, the heart is not compartmentalized. People will say, I'm focusing on my business. I don't have time for love. I was hurt. I'm just going to work. I'm going to hustle. That's all fair. But if you close off the aspect of your heart for love and say, I'm going to focus on work and health, that doesn't jive. Sure, you can still be successful, but you're going to have to work harder. You're not in the flow, and you're going to effectively have to steal energy from the better future version of yourself to satisfy what you need now, which is cheating you for a future. So that speaks to your point. When a guy commits or a woman commits, this goes both ways. Without a closed heart, you actually energetically open up the universe to better health and better and more money. So the heart should be seen as a coherent structure called heart coherence, not a compartmentalized sectioning. And you understand this with how the heart functions as far as the electrical system. It functions as a single unit, not individualized.
Yeah, and it is the space from which our aura is sourced as well. Like when they do a reading of the aura, the center point of the aura is the heart. So
Yeah.
it's such a central aspect to our being that if you choose to cut off love or like, I don't want a relationship or I think a relationship's going to distract me, that's like an amputation because love is like caffeine. Think about when you're so in love, you have like so much energy. Everything is amazing. Nothing triggers you. Yeah. You don't even need to sleep. Yeah. You don't. And so love really, and love is the force of creation. So of course have love. I want to talk now about something before we came on, we touched upon it. Like even when we talk about like the sacred container of the relationship, we've talked about why it's so important to even decide what kind of relationship you want, define it, because different things mean different things to different people. Like what I think is monogamy and these are the rules, and someone else might think, oh, but that's not a big deal. Like you could cuddle with someone, and it's like, no, you can't. Right. So everyone even has a different idea of what's allowed in your relationship. And so this is huge because I know even when I've dated people and we're talking about just regular topics, they'll say something. And in the English, because, I live in Ibiza, it's international here. One time I had a guy say something like he needed space, but he actually didn't mean he needed space from the relationship. He's like, oh, I need to meditate and I need to do these things, but he still wanted to keep seeing me. But then he said that. And then he was like, okay, so how about we see each other on Tuesday? And it was like Sunday. And I was like, huh? You just said you needed space. And he's like, what do you mean? And like we got into a total misunderstanding because that's not even what he actually meant the way I thought he meant it. So we think we're saying the same thing because we use a word and we're not, right? And so if you want to elaborate a bit more about what you were sharing before we came on with loyalty and all the different things.
I usually recommend that people, and they're oftentimes scared to do this, but you go deep early in dating. You ask the questions that actually matter so you understand fundamentally if there's a connection, if there's longevity there, if there's alignment rather than just chemistry, right? Chemistry you can figure out pretty quick. You sit down 15 minutes, you know if you've got chemistry with somebody, if you vibe. But that's not going to get you 10 years down the road. So questions relating to values are something that I'm huge on asking within the first 2 dates. But going deeper than that is, okay, so say, for example, loyalty, which is a common value that men and women both have. Well, what does loyalty look like to you? And that's when people really have to think, because it's not an easy question. Okay, I can list off, I like honesty, I like kindness, and I like loyalty, but explain that to me, right? For example, loyalty has a number of characteristics. There's emotional loyalty. So, you don't flirt with temptation. You're not looking to see who's watching. You're not sharing your partner's vulnerabilities. And I like to think of the sacred space of a relationship literally as a vault or a safe, literally. And when things go in there, the only person that has the combination is your partner and maybe your therapist. That's it. And that speaks to when you're in conversations with girlfriends and they're all kind of like, you do what people do. You talk about your relationship. Was there a fight or something like this? But true loyalty means the things that your partner tells you and the things that are happening that may not be awesome. Maybe you had a fight. You keep that close to your chest, right? This creates a massive amount of respect for your partner, and they will see you as respectful, because if that ever gets back to them and they know I don't talk about our relationship, it's not a lack of openness and vulnerability with friends. It's protecting the container of what's important to you, and that's your partner's inner being, their inner essence, themselves, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know for sure women love to talk, like we love to call our girlfriends, even about, sometimes people think like guys talk things that happen even intimately, but women love it. Women love to talk about all that stuff.
I've heard what's in the group chats, and I'm like,
yeah. So to your point though, from an energetic perspective, and someone works in the realm of energy, I often, what we focus on expands and what we speak into existence expands. So it makes sense if there is a challenge in your relationship that you just don't go blabbing it to friends or family or whoever, because it creates all of those negative projections now onto your relationship, and actually it could be harder because then they start viewing your partner through the eyes of this challenge, this fight, this thing that happened. And it really taints the relationship. And I know from experience too. And so it's true. I would say in future I hope I only have one more, but in a future relationship that, I really value that definition and agreement around loyalty to help keep the sacred container, because it is like putting holes into the container. If you start telling other people things and then getting their opinions, and then you're being swayed from possibly what your truth is, and they don't know the whole story. Yep. So it is important to keep the lip tight. And I do think it's important to even define what honesty is. You mentioned honesty, because for me, I don't like white lies, but there's some people that like want that. So you have to define, like, what does honesty mean to you? How honest are we going to go? I'm the kind of person, I want to know everything. I want to know if someone texted you. I want to know everything because I'm so psychic. I can feel it. I don't know what it is, but I can feel it. Something happened. I don't know what it is. So tell me everything.
I think this is a woman's trait, because I hear this a lot, right? Because women, they want to know. They like feed the beast, right? If you did something wrong, tell me everything. Whereas men are like, but why? So
I don't want to.
Yeah. I've had this conversation with the woman that was in my life recently, and we had different definitions of honesty because I had my own childhood wounds that I have to deal with. And one of them was the slight anxious attachment. So I didn't want to, create a fight. I didn't want to make something seem bigger than it actually was. So I would downplay things. So I'd tell the truth, but I would eliminate certain details. And she, from her perspective, said, well, that's not honest. I want to know everything. You're hiding things. So this was a conversation, to speak to your point, that we actually had. And I had to change my perception of the value of honesty based on this conversation, which really comes down to the ability to shift values and redefine them when you're having open communication with your partner. But this all happens within that space. And there's a lot of different types of honesty. Someone can say, and I run into this a lot when I'm coaching women, particularly because they tend to be more on the anxious scale. Women will say, I show up authentically and I show up honestly. Yet in relationship, they tend to have their boundaries pushed over because they just want to make the guy happy. They want to make people happy. They just want to do what can be done so that they're not rejected or abandoned, that they're loved. So as a result, they won't be honest about their emotions, which emotional honesty, I think, is one of the most important types of honesty in a relationship. Saying how you feel without projecting it onto your partner. And then this speaks to the security of the man, because the people often say, well, what does secure look like? And fundamentally, it's the simplest thing, is your emotional state no longer becomes a threat to your man's nervous system.
Yeah, because men can feel it. Just like we can feel if something happens, they can feel if we say, oh, well, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But underneath, we're seething or sad or hurt or whatever. But we're like, I'm fine.
It's dishonest. It's dishonest.
It's like, exactly. You're absolutely right. I totally agree with you. Yeah. And it does take a moment to be really self-aware. And then here's where the personal development, spirituality comes in, and having some kind of practice of self-awareness. Because for some people, it can take time. Whereas what you can just say is like, I feel triggered. I'm not really sure how I feel or what I feel yet, but I do feel triggered, or I feel a density, or I feel my heart's closing. Yeah. That alone, that communication creates a different kind of energy that can allow your partner to hold you and show up, and a greater sensitivity can be there, instead of bulldozing over the boundary or bulldozing over the emotion, thinking, oh, we'll just deal with it later. And then this is how resentments build up over time, and then disconnection. Instead of, if you say like, all right, okay, that was a lot, and I'm definitely feeling some kind of way. I don't know how I feel right now, but I feel like a pressure in my chest. Mm-hmm. That alone is going to start to shift the energy and create more connection and curiosity and vulnerability.
Absolutely. But this also takes a large amount of awareness on both partners' sides, because I think fundamentally women, just as much as men, if not more, have three aspects that they really desire to feel loved in a relationship. And that is to be seen. So the willingness to look inside, the capacity to be understood. So help me understand where you're coming from, right? Teach me how to love you. What do you need from me? But then most importantly, acceptance. So accepting the person when they are seen and understood, and not rejecting them and not taking it personally. So absolutely, this is part of that safe container, that whatever happens in there, you're not going to get rejected because I'm in this. I'm loyal to us as a couple in whatever happens and how whatever feelings are existing inside of that.
I also think for really sensitive men, if you could feel is not fine, it's up to you also not to just be like, okay, if you say it's fine. And also vice versa. Obviously, if we as women see our man is not fine, we also want to be like, okay, babe, I love you. I see what's going on. We're on the same team. And having the man do that as well. A lot of women have like the freeze response. I have a bit of a freeze response sometimes if I'm triggered. Yeah. Whereas men can sometimes, if triggered, have more of a anger outburst or something. But not all. Some shut down, right? And they go into freeze also, or just numbness. Mm-hmm. Depends, I guess, on what their mother was like, or growing up, what whoever was like. They'll either be more So that's the thing, depending on, we all respond to triggers differently. So just because someone's not outwardly raging, it doesn't mean that inside they're not contracted and experiencing something. So that sensitivity to each other's nervous system and emotions and what's going on is also, I think, super key for a sacred type of container for a relationship.
That's called emotional attunement. And I speak to this in a lot of my posts. And emotional attunement is a practice. For example, when you hug a partner for about 20 seconds, contact on the dorsal aspect of the body starts to sync your nervous system, the biorhythm, and it syncs your heart rate, which is really interesting. So, physical touch, affection, walking with the bilateral movement of the arms and legs tends to have the same effect as EMDR. It stimulates both sides of the brain, EMDR being a therapy in psychology to treat past trauma. So when you're doing these simple little tasks, this starts to give you a sense of interpersonal attunement with your partner. The more you do these things, walking, holding hands, sitting beside each other at dinner, having a shower together occasionally, this links you. Number one, it creates a sense of safety because of the oxytocin and other hormones that are produced from physical contact and closeness, which makes your partner the trigger for safety. You tend to get a deeper sense of attunement. So exactly to what you're saying, if you notice your partner's energy is off because you've done the work to attune to their nervous system, they don't have to say anything. People see this as attentive. He just gets me. He can, and the woman again in my life recently, same thing. She's like, it frustrates me to no end. You read my mind, like all the time. I'll get something. I'll do something. I'll say something. She's like, how do you even know this? She's like, I was just doing this one thing. And it's not that she's saying she wants to do it. It's just, there's an attunement with what's going on with the person. And you're just sensitive to that. And you have the capacity to listen to it. But that's a practice skill. And men particularly are not taught that. It takes a lot of work.
In the energy world, I just call that telepathic communication.
Yeah.
And the more time you spend, and when you sleep next to someone, your heart chakras communicate. And so that starts to also sync you both together. And this goes back to my point, which is why you cannot lie to us. We feel everything, and it goes both ways. So if you say you're fine and you're really not, we can feel it. If something happened and you're omitting and you're not sharing, we can feel it. So I feel like it's so important, if for divine union level relationships with sacred containers, that is the level you get to. You can easily not speak and just know what you both are feeling without having to say it. And that's
absolutely
beautiful.
The best relationships are the ones where you can sit for hours and really not have to say a whole bunch and feel completely satisfied.
Yeah. So inside the bonus content, we're going to share some of our top tips to help couples, or even if you're single and you're calling in that sacred relationship, we're going to share our top tips. But I do want to end this main episode with a few things that I'm going to ask Chris, true or false, based on stuff I've seen on his page anyway. But I think it's good for men to hear it from a man, and also for women to hear it from men as well. True or false, Chris? When a man is in a sacred relationship, is it okay for him to be following what I call titty and ass women and liking their posts? Is that okay?
The leaky energy, not okay.
Ding, ding, ding. You've got it right. And is it okay for a woman who's in a sacred relationship for her to post titty and ass photos?
Oh man, you're killing me here with this one. I would say that I do not like double standards, so no.
Right. Unless she asks her partner, are you okay with this photo if I post it? And if he's like, yeah, babe, you look great, and he likes it and he wants her to post it, then it's okay.
It's always a conversation, and this is an important thing. To have safety in a relationship, you should be comfortable saying, I am not comfortable with this, posting pictures, but I just want you to know how I feel. You're your own person. I'm going to support whatever you want to do. because it's not about control and it's not about changing the person. It's about supporting it while still expressing how you feel. That's emotional honesty with acceptance of who the other person is.
Yeah, I don't think it's control. I think it's respect. So, for example, if my man said to me that no, that photo's too much or whatever, then I would say no problem. I don't need to post it. You know what I mean? So for me, it's respect more. Like I don't think I'm being controlled. There's 17 other outfits I could wear, or etc. Like I think that it's really beautiful that we can ask our partners if we don't feel comfortable with something to say, hey, this makes me feel like this. What are your thoughts on it? Have a conversation. But yeah, it's an interesting time with the social media world. And even similar to like, if you go into a relationship, this is another one. What about opposite sex friends?
Opposite sex friends. And this is one that I had posted on, and the majority of men and women agree that opposite sex friends are not good. This really is, Esther Perel, Matthew Hussey, the Gottmans all have the general consensus that is not recommended in a secure relationship, because it allows you a sense of emotional vulnerability with someone that is outside the relationship. And that's very specifically designed for your therapist, a close confidant, coach, and your partner only.
I agree. And I also agree because I find that when people of the opposite sex come together, usually if you pull them, one or the other has some kind of like, if I had the chance, I totally would.
Yeah.
There's on some level, there's an attraction on some level. So you're playing with fire, and any form of flirting is also sexual energy exchange. I was once a monk for 3 months, and it was hard for me to talk to a man and be physically in close proximity and it was also an energetic container. It wasn't just like, okay, now I'm going to do the celibacy thing. No, it was like I was doing work in temples and I was doing all these rituals and I was inside an energy. So I really could feel when my energy field would be penetrated by another, specifically a man's energy. I would like feel it in my body, like, whoa. So it felt off to even be so close. And I wasn't even in a relationship. So, and then of course, if you're in a relationship, I imagine, especially when you're building, like even with myself too, I feel like I could also feel when I'm in a relationship, if I could see a woman is eyeing my man, like I feel that energy, but I'm also super energetically attuned. So I do feel that same-sex friends without it being like our friend as a couple, right? It can be your friend as a couple, but like just that's your
different. Yeah, I'm going to meet Bob and we're going to hang out for a couple hours at lunch because I got to talk about some stuff, right? An emotional confidant is not something that's needed in a relationship. That'd be very difficult to justify in a convincing way, I believe, why you need someone of the same sex to confide in, because really that's what your partner's for. And if you can't talk to your partner's, not your therapist either, right? So for things, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, I'm working through my own stuff, I'm going to go speak to a therapist about it. Again, this is leaky energy. And just speaking to the desire, one partner may always feel something. Esther Perel talks about this, that desire is kind of like, it's bred in the shadows. It's bred in obscurity, and it grows when you can't have something, right? And this is the old wedding ring thing. The man with the wedding ring and a child is like the highest. Women love it, right?
Not for all women. I'm like, no thanks. No way. Not all women. I think women who desire divine union partnership, no. We see that and it's like, I'm good. I don't even want to talk to you. I don't even want to have a conversation with you, actually, right? Women, though, who may be eyeing or have some issues to still heal, I think then yes,
What I'm getting at is it's unattainable. So in a relationship, if you're with somebody who's in relationship, this can spike the desire a little bit because they can't have them, and it creates a tension that is unnecessary.
Yeah, no, I still agree with why it's not good for sure. Yeah. So we hope that you have now some food for thought for your current relationship to upgrade that container. And we'll be sharing more inside the bonus content. But before we go, Dr. Chris, please share where people can find you. We're going to, of course, share your bio and links in the comment section. But you can also share for those listening.
Right now we are on TikTok, which is relatively new. That's only about a month old, but primarily on Facebook at Evolved by Dr. Chris. And we are working on more courses and content to come, so it will be expanding. But right now, primarily is Instagram at Evolved by Dr. Chris.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Chris, for being here. And we will see you all inside the bonus content. Thanks for being here, and bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Please like this podcast and share it with anyone you feel would benefit. Subscribe to the podcast to receive bonus content, and remember, every Monday the video version goes live on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being on the ascension path with me and for doing this great work.